All right, everyone. Eric Adams has had an epiphany. Yes, the mayor of New York City has decided that he's now on the opposite side of the spectrum with regards to immigration and the border crisis. Which makes sense, since several 100,000 illegals are currently residing in his city, and the city is incapable of actually providing beyond basic services for them, while it has to ignore its own homeless population, etc., etc. And so New York City right now, along with Chicago and Philadelphia and a few others, having real logistic issues. They've been trying to bus the asylum seekers and illegals to outlying areas, surrounding areas, to try to alleviate pressure. The problem being you can't coerce a person into getting on that bus, and they appear to generally like New York City. New Yorkers aside, Eric Adams has a big fucking logistic problem. Now, he's throwing Biden under the bus again. This is, I think, the third time, roughly, that he's spoken out against Biden's shitty border policies. And I congratulate him for that. I would like to point out that this is a retaliatory strike against Joe Biden. Here's the timeline. Eric Adams probably did grab money from foreign shell corporations and foreign entities when he was running for election as the mayor of New York City. Politicians do this on the reg. Many politicians violate campaign finance law. It's probably more than half of them. Whether it's a big city mayor, gubernatorial run, people in Congress, hell, presidents of the United States, although they tend to be held up to more scrutiny, so I think there's more restraint there. They launder the Chinese money before they take it, usually. The DNC has plenty of yuan in its bank account. So does the RNC, by the way. What happens is, if you're shrewd and calculating, like Joe Biden's not, but the people that are actually running the show behind the scenes are, you conduct research into friend and foe alike. You want to keep tabs on who has broken what laws. Here's the secret. You don't pull the trigger. You use differential enforcement. You command the law enforcement agency not to pursue it if the person is staying in line, and to pursue it if they step out of line. Eric Adams criticized Biden's border policy, and within 2 fucking weeks, his campaign finance manager was raided by the FBI. A few weeks later, he was raided by the FBI. He's a man who has no more fucks to give. He already knows that the differential enforcement aspect of the bureaucratic complex known as intel and law enforcement is gunning for him. And they're gunning for him because he criticized Führer Joe Biden. Since he's going to be persecuted anyway, he can now come out on TV and say, well, I've had an epiphany on the border crisis. I think that we should do the opposite. No. Before I was in favor of come all ye faithful, give us your huddled masses, but then I realized how many huddled masses there were, and the people of my city are suffering as a result of that, and I have to govern on their behalf. They're the ones that are paying me, and so now I've done a 180 on the issue. Jesus spoke to me and told me that I was wrong, basically. He's literally using the term epiphany like a religious language, which is something politicians do in times of stress. They resort to their religion, usually. If you vote against me, you're voting for Satan. That's basically the sum and substance. Now, Eric Adams is being entirely self-serving with this. He has not had an epiphany. He's ultimately ambivalent on the issue, except when it affects him. He is a NIMBYist liberal, like all liberals tend to be. If the border crisis were a crisis for just southern Texas and Arizona and stuff, he wouldn't have dick to say about it. But because he decided to speak out about it, Biden decided to persecute him. Now he's returning the favor. Favors for favors, how lovely. Seeing the mayor of New York City sparring with the president of the United States, despite the fact that they're from the same political party, is pretty funny now, isn't it? And there is a border crisis. Eric Adams is completely correct. It's just that if it didn't come home to roost there, like if Abbott and DeSantis and the others in the South didn't have the bright idea to bus migrants up to the northern half of the country, they wouldn't be speaking out at all. The mayor of Chicago, mayor of New York City, they wouldn't have anything to say about it. It is self-serving. But the persecutorial aspect of differential enforcement is what concerns me. That's the problem. Because plenty of other politicians, and Biden knows who they are, have broken campaign finance laws and done all sorts of shady shit. They go to secret rape islands and stuff like that on the reg. The thing is that you collect that intel and keep it in your little black book, like Hillary Clinton literally bragged about having like a book of a naughty list, basically. And then you unleash the feds on the person if they become a political problem for you. If they're not being a problem, they can get away with literal murder. They can have bodies in their basement. Nobody gives a damn because nobody will ever, in the public at least, will ever know that they were there. If they speak out against you, that's when you go full mafia on them. They have to kiss ring. As long as they kiss ring, they have impunity. You can do whatever the fuck you want. Eric Adams could literally wander down the street with his dick out, swinging it in circles and pissing on the homeless, and Biden wouldn't do jack shit about it, so long as Eric Adams gives his blessing to his policies. Or at the very least stays out of the way and doesn't say anything. Because, of course, Eric Adams had to speak out. If he had couched his language more and said, well, I look forward to working with the Biden administration. I know Joe's doing his best. I give him credit for that. I know that he's doing the best that he can at the southern border, and the border crisis is really Trump's fault. Somehow, Biden's literally tried to make that pitch. I know he's doing his best. I look forward to working with him to alleviate the problem that's being created here in New York City because, you know, we're NIMBYs here and the illegals should stay down south where they belong, etc., etc. Had he couched his language, he probably would not have gotten raided by the FBI. The timing was too coincidental. It's beyond coincidence. You speak out and 2 weeks later your campaign manager gets raided by the FBI. Put two and two together, we know that these two things are linked. That's because they had the dirt to begin with, but Biden never gave, or somebody adjacent to Biden, never gave the order to pull the trigger. As soon as Eric Adams spoke out, all of a sudden he and his staff are getting raided by the feds. Over, again, campaign finance laws that are laxly enforced to begin with. It's not a coincidence. The two are related. Now he's gone all in, though. Now that and this is Biden's problem. Once you do pull the trigger, and you have a sluggish legal system, it takes months or years to actually get anything done, because you've got appeals, and you've got hearings, and paperwork filings, and the judge got sick, and so she couldn't be in there for the week, and stuff like that. Once you pull the trigger, you've used your ammo. If you don't immediately knock your opponent to the ground and kill them, then they become really, really mean because they've got nothing left to lose. When you're a marked man, you're like, fuck it, you know, I'm going to spill the dirt on everyone. I mean, I know that I'm going to be having my day in prison anyway, so, you know, and he knows he's guilty, by the way, he probably is. I'm going to get fucked. I'm probably going to lose my job. What do I have to lose? Why don't I take down the administration that's trying to take me down? And be like, again, it's sort of like watching Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis when they were both still in the race and watching them grapple as they fell to the ground. Like a couple of hawks falling out of the sky or something like that. Whether they were mating or not remains to be seen. I kind of respect Eric Adams because, I mean, imagine, put yourself in his shoes. He embezzled money from foreign entities. He broke the law. It's quite clear. You do have to have the evidence before you actually get a warrant to raid people. Even under the FISA system, there has to be some threshold. That's why it's usually granted. Unless it's Pissgate or something like that. Then you don't need any evidence at all. You just need a dossier compiled by a foreign spy. Very interesting. But he could shut up. He could try to redeem himself and go beg at the White House. He could, you know, come crawling to Joe Biden like a little puppy and lick his feet and say, oh, Joe, I didn't mean to criticize you. Look, I'll make it right. I'll come out and on TV and I'll say, I was wrong. It's ultimately, I spoke to Joe earlier. He explained to me why it's actually the Trump border crisis. He laid the groundwork for everything that's happening, and Joe's doing a great job. I really want to work with him. Really sorry about taking all that money from Turkey, by the way. He could grovel. He could beg. And he'd probably get off if he did that. Biden would get off at that, too. He's into weird shit. But he chose not to do that. Instead, he's going all in. He's waging war on Biden's White House. And it's doing some good damage. And I think that Eric Adams is doing that in part because he expects Biden to lose, and he's like, well, I mean, he can't persecute me if he's no longer in office now, can he? He'll be a footnote in history. I'll still be the mayor of New York, and hopefully I'll be able to maintain my job because Trump will spare me a little bit because I helped get him reelected, because I put, I shined a light on the border crisis. I think that's basically his operative strategy. Very helpful. That's about all. Peace out.